Welcome to This Works Marketing, where 3 decades of proven experience has launched products, built brands, and generated profits. These are the stories behind the businesses that have been built. Today on This Works Marketing, we're going to talk about the growth of private labels and the effect they're going to have on your business. Hey everybody, my name is Ken Carey. I'm a direct sales expert for the last 30 years, working with big companies, small companies, entrepreneurs, and every size company in between, all the way up to the biggest brands in the world. And we have generated over $6.5 billion in sales for our clients. So I want to talk a little bit today about the effect that private label is having on businesses. Not only today, but it's having this in the future. And the reason this comes up, and I've talked about this a little bit here and there on some of the topics that we've been talking about recently. And so I just came back from a little trip from Idaho, visiting some friends, and this past Memorial Day weekend. And something came up that was really interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was talking about a company that he used to work for. He just left that company, and he's moving on to another company. And I asked him, what's the big reason that you're moving on? Outside of a couple of corporate things, the biggest reason was this company was doing over $800 million in sales over the last 3 years. They grew up from $500 million to $700 million to $800 million. And then within the last 2 years, they literally dropped half their net or gross business. And I'm thinking, well, how does a company like that has grown so quickly to those kind of staggering numbers, fall off that quick? Especially when they were the leaders in their industry when it comes to selling, and the business was a supplement business into the sports and fitness world. So we were talking about that, and he said to me unequivocally, it was the online marketplaces. Absolutely changed their business. And what was that specifically? And he said that A, you can get products for free, and they're going to be charging you less. But that was just part of the problem. And then I said to him, I go, well, how many of those customers did the company you used to work for, how many of those customers did the company have access to or have, some kind of relationship with? And he said, almost none, very, very little. And I thought, wow, if that's not a whack upside the head about how important it is to build your own direct-to-consumer channel, doing it the correct way because of private labels and what the online marketers and retailers are doing to potential businesses, if that's not a good example, then I don't know what is. So I had said to him, I said, well, if you guys had that direct-to-consumer relationship where you had information, that first-tier data to those customers, where do you think your business would be today? And he said, unequivocally, it'd be twice the size of where we were at 800 million at their peak. I said, well, that's pretty significant, from 800 million to potentially 1.6 billion, now to 200 to 300 million. That's a huge, huge gap. Well, that's one just dramatic example of what's happening. And that forced him to move on to another company that had more of a direct-to-consumer DNA built about their company, because he knew for him it was sustainability for a job for him and his family and what he wanted to do as a professional. So I bring that up because when I started thinking about that a little bit more, it was interesting because we went to this local store, which is called Kroger's. Actually, it was called Fred Meyer, owned by Kroger's. And we were on our way somewhere, and we went in to go get some gas. And I said, well, you're taking me on this trip, and I'll be glad to pay for the gas. So we go to the gas station. He says, well, wait a minute, let me put in my customer number. And he puts in my customer number. He puts in his customer number. And the difference between what he would have paid had he not been a customer in the Kroger, Fred Meyer world, was almost triple, meaning we paid $15 for a full tank of gas when he could have easily paid $45 to $50. Now that's amazing. And I said, well, why is that? He goes, well, because we do business. We buy our groceries at this store and we do everything at this store. And I said to him, you realize what's happening here is they have made you as a customer part of their ecosystem, and now they have you as they have a direct to consumer relationship with you. It may look a little bit differently because you get points and things like that, but you keep doing business with them because A, you get value, B, you get discounts, and you get these other perks, and that's what they want you to do, because they want you to keep you there. Now, once they keep you in that store, then the battle really starts. So let's just take, for example, two other retailers that I want to talk about how they have built their private label brands, as well as Amazon, what they have done most recently in their private label brands, and how that's affecting the overall ecosystem of selling products and services. And that's why I wanted to get into this today, because I wanted to get into some very, very specific numbers, and specifically because this just came up the other day, and I just saw the direct-to-consumer model happening in a different way through that ecosystem of the Fred Meyer, Kroger world, and how it affected that person throughout their whole, everything they buy, basically. So I went and did some research and found some really interesting statistics. So Costco, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Costco. They have their own brand called Kirkland. Now, just last year alone, Kirkland did over $39 billion worth of sales. Now you take that brand, Kirkland, which is exclusive to Costco, and you compare that to Kraft Heinz, the conglomerate Kraft Heinz that is nationwide, that did $29 billion. That is pretty significant when a private label at a retailer is doing $10 billion more than what we've known as these big corporate conglomerates. And that market share, those dollars are being taken away from those corporate conglomerates and going into the private label world. Now, it's still growing, but it's growing extremely rapidly for many, many reasons. The first one is exclusivity. A private label gives you exclusivity to your customer, meaning you have to go to that store, you have to go to that marketplace, you have to go somewhere to get that product, which is what they want you to do, okay? The second is loyalty. So if you're going to continue to go to that place because these exclusive products, you're becoming loyal to them, and they're going to reward you for that loyalty. And they're going to keep you in their ecosystem even longer. As long as they keep you in your ecosystem, they're going to keep feeding you brands that are label brands. You may go in there for the big brand products, but eventually you're going to be making changes towards these private label brands. And it's slowly happening. Matter of fact, it's not even slowly happening anymore. It's happening quickly. Number three is increased revenue for that retailer, whether it's Amazon as an online retailer or Walmart or those brick and mortar stores. It's increased revenue to those businesses because, number four, is because they become the wholesaler. They do not have to pay that middleman cost for that product or service or that markup. Therefore, it gives them increased revenue, and that's what companies are in business for. They're in business to make money, so they have to increase their revenue, and this is one of the ways that they're doing it. Well, what does that mean for you and your business and your product or service? That means that eventually, if you're at retail or if you're at Amazon, if you're at those places, eventually it's going to nip at your business slowly but surely until it finally just takes it over. So my point to all that is it's more important now to build a direct-to-consumer relationship with your customer than it ever has been in the history of retailing, because the dollars that are involved, the potential revenue that's involved is staggering. And because there's this disruption, they have to figure out a way to get their foundation back. And that foundation is increased revenue. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do it by building products and making products that customers want. And eventually it's going to move you and your brand eventually out the door or out of the internet door, and you are going to be held holding the bag. Well, you don't have to be held that way, because just like they're doing it, you could be doing that for yourself. So you could be having exclusivity, you could be having loyalty, you could be having increased revenue, and you could be the wholesaler because you're going direct to that consumer. As long as you are creating a good product and have a good customer experience and treat that customer with dignity and respect, which is common practice, should be common practice in business. As long as you're doing that, you're building your own direct-to-consumer business, and it allows you not to be leveraged by these other places. Let me give you some other numbers and some other stats that I thought were pretty interesting. In Amazon being the #1 retailer, as a matter of fact, they're saying, this research I got it out of Forbes was saying that this year, Amazon is going to be the #1 clothing retailer in the world. They're going to surpass Walmart, which is pretty staggering. And so Amazon has 135 private label brands and 330 Amazon exclusives. So that's a lot. And they're saying that they're going to be adding, between 12 and 25 a year, depending on what customers are buying, the information they're getting from those customers, and them working with their wholesaler, not their wholesalers, but their factories to create those products for them under the Amazon name. So that's growing and growing and growing. And again, it goes back to increased revenue, loyalty, and exclusivity. And then I won't even get into Amazon Prime, because that's a whole nother level where you have exclusive brands only as an Amazon Prime member. So they've even doubled the ante, if you will. So here's something that out of all that information, something even more staggering. That the private label brands at Amazon alone, and pretty much in a majority of retail, except for some of the stuff in Costco, because Costco started building Kirkland back in 1992, but most of it has been happening in the last 12 years. Well, if that kind of disruption is happening in the last 12 years, what's going to happen in the next 12 years? Heck, what's going to happen in the next 2 years when this continues to get more and more profitable for these businesses, and they create those relationships with those customers? You're going to get pushed out even faster. And if you're feeling that squeeze now, it's going to be a chokehold in a couple of years, because that's how quickly it's growing. I mean, Amazon's going to do $7.5 billion in sales alone just in their private labels. And like I said, they've only started doing this since 12 years ago. And they're projecting by 2022, sales are expected to reach over $25 billion in Amazon. So I've thrown a lot of numbers, I've thrown a lot of statistics, I've thrown a lot of stuff out there, and what I hope that I've communicated is more reality than prognostication, because these are real numbers, these things are really happening, and it's just going to be happening faster and faster and faster. And as a matter of fact, private label brands, they're not even considered trade downs anymore. They're actually considered revenue and profit drivers to businesses. And I remember, I'm a Whole Food shopper periodically, not all the time, but they have this brand, 365 Every Day, where you can buy the 365 Everyday trail mix or nuts, or you can go to the branded version of those, like Blue Diamond or whatever, and it's about 25% less. And you know what? They're just as good, and they taste just as good, and I even get a little bit more for less money. I don't even consider it anymore because it's a good product, and I continue to buy it, and now it's proliferating itself through the entire store. So, I don't believe it's ever going to take over everything, but as businesses and as companies that are selling products and services, we all know that you have to continually find new revenue channels to increase revenue for the business. We all know that. And that happens through global expansion, that happens through CX, that happens through other markets, that happens through, like a direct-to-consumer channel, other channels. So this is just one avenue of it. But the numbers that are affecting it make the decision to build a direct-to-consumer channel much more on top of mind and much more important to be thinking about right now, just because of the rapid movement and speed of what's happening around you, and you having the ability to control your own destiny. Every business wants to be able to control their own destiny, and this is the opportunity to do that, to control your own destiny. Because I look at it this, I go, there's a train coming down the track. Now I see a little glimpse of the light, but that light is getting faster and brighter and brighter and brighter. So it's way out there in the distance, but it's coming this way. And the decision I have to ask myself is, am I going to get out of the way and do something about it, or am I going to stand there and let it go right over me? I think we'd all agree that we want to get out of the way and do something about it. So, because of this trip I just had, and just having this epiphany of seeing how direct-to-consumer is totally happening in a different way, it just wanted me to bring this up again. And I wanted to get into some numbers because I've been talking about this for some time now, and I never really got into some deep numbers here, and so I wanted to share that with you. And this is numbers from Forbes. They're from Bain & Company. They're very detailed and very specific to these companies with a lot of history and integrity to them. So I just want to close by saying that, it's almost June 1st. We're halfway through the year in just about 10 days. And the companies that we're working with are making decisions now on what they're going to be doing for the fourth quarter and how that's going to affect fourth quarter and into the first quarter of 2020. And what we're seeing is more and more people getting information about it, understanding how it works, and realizing that this is a revenue channel that they have to start investigating. And I'm not saying it's for everybody. And I'm not saying it's the panacea to everybody's problems. What I am saying is that this problem really exists, it is growing, and you have a decision to do something about it. So my strong recommendation is to get some information about how does it work? Where do you find those customers? How do you communicate to them? Because it's not about just throwing your brand out there. It's really about turning a prospect, a potential prospect, and turning it into a customer that has lifetime value. That's the key, a lifetime value of a customer that stays in your ecosystem and you continue to do business with them. That's a big undertaking to take on, but it's doable. Companies are doing it every day. We help companies do it every day. And it is a real defense to this offense that's happening. It's almost like you're playing that team in high school, and you feel so small as a team, and this big, huge high school comes in and you just feel like we're going to get steamrolled. Well, that's kind of the way businesses are feeling. Like they're getting on the field and there's a bigger team coming up and they're going to get steamrolled and they better do something. And that something is jumping in the weight room and preparing for what they need to be doing. So I hope this information was a wake-up call. I also hope it was informative that these are real statistics you can find and these numbers are really happening. And I just employ companies with products and services to recognize that there is a disruption happening and be truthful with yourself and know that it's really happening and do your diligence to figure out how you're going to take on this issue that is coming extremely fast, and it's getting bigger and it's coming faster every single year. So if this information was helpful to you or someone you know that has a product or service that works for a company or owns a company, I would really appreciate that you pass this on. And just to like start that conversation about this is something that needs to get done, and it can be done very effectively through all platforms, very effectively. You can keep your brand authenticity, you can subsidize your media dollars, and you can, most importantly, protect yourself from those areas that are growing and squeezing you in more and more every year. So if you have any questions, if you have any topics that you'd like us to take on here at This Works Marketing, we really appreciate it. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can get me at Ken Carey at STS. You can find me there. And, again, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them because we want to give value, we want to give answers, and we want to help you through this process of this inevitability that is happening. All right, that's it for today. We'll talk to you soon next time.